mystics or anything like that. They're not mystics, believe me. They're not healers. They're nothing, just like you and me. But they were given certain gifts at the time in order to help people to accept and believe that the message was from the Blessed Mother. Anyway, this priest lived here for about 3 months and became very friendly, knowing the language with all the 4 girls and the people in the village. In fact, her youngest brother was born after that, and father became the godfather. So you could see there was a tremendous intimacy with father and these people. Now, I've had people say to me, how come you say the miracle is going to happen in the month of April, when there are people still saying it will be March, April, or May? And they're dumbfounded. They don't know how. Well, if you have not received our newspaper, you know, consistently from the past, then you wouldn't know the story, right? Because most of the books say March, April, or May. And that's the way it used to be. But Conchita told me herself in 1969 that the miracle would happen between February and June, but not February and not June. She obviously told that to many, many people, maybe in another way, but it was always between February and June, but not February and June. That meant March, April, or May. And she also said between the 7th and the 17th of the month, but not the 7th and not the 17th. So, when I met Father Morales in the 80s, I'm not going to say what date exactly, because I don't remember, sometime in the 80s, I was in Italy lecturing, and he had formed a community called the Sons of Divine Will. And he was based outside of Rome. And I went to see him and taped the whole interview. So it's all on tape. And in this interview, he said that every night he used to play a game with Conchita. And the game was, let's see if you can guess the date of the miracle. Well, he could never guess it. And finally she says, I'm going to help you, Father. The miracle will not happen in the month of May. Right? A lot of people used to think it was going to happen in May. First they thought it would happen in August. And then they began to think it was going to happen in May because it was the Blessed Mother's month. And that's how this girl got to confine the months to get people off the track of this guessing game. And a lot of people thought, well, the miracle's going to happen on the 18th of the month because everything in Garabandal seems to be on the 18th of the month. And that's why she came up between the 7th and the 17th, but not the 7th and not the 17th. Some people are curious about this. That's the explanation. Well, now she's telling Father that it will not be in the month of May. So now we have March or April left. A fellow by the name of Harry Daly, who was an actor, he's a stunt artist. Okay, I don't know if he's doing that anymore today, but that was his livelihood. And he lives in New York, and he became very friendly with Conchita. And every night he used to go up to her house, and they used to sit and talk. And after she got married, it was the same thing. And he came here and he did some filming. He did a film called Conchita Speaks, and which is a very nice documentary. It's not too long, where she's asked questions and she gives answers. He did it on 16 millimeter, so this film really is not anything that has been circulating. Parts of it have been taken and maybe implemented in other things. We have never done that. But anyway, what I'm driving at is he became very, very friendly with this girl. And when he left the house, the minute he got out the door, if she had said anything significant to him that he didn't want to forget, he'd write it down. One day, she said to him, the miracle will not happen in the month of March. He turned around and he wrote a book called The Miracle of Garabandal. And in it, he clearly gives the story that she told him it will not be in the month of March. And that's how we arrive at April. It's as simple as that. And so I had this all on tape, the information that Father Morales had given me, and I decided now it's time. After about 2 or 3 years I was sitting on this, not telling anybody at all. And I decided I would call Conchita. It was time to publish it. And I called her and I said, now Conchita, if this isn't true or you don't want me to publish it, you just say, Maria, don't do it, and that will be the end of it. I'll put it away and I'll forget about it. If you want me to publish it, you say, okay, go ahead. If it's true or not true, whatever it is you want me to do, I'll do. I made it clear that I would abide by her wishes. Now, I know this girl pretty good. If she can't remember something, she immediately says, I don't remember, I can't remember, I don't know. If the thing is not true, she'll say, I never said that. But she didn't give me either one of those answers. Or she may say, yeah, I remember, this is the only part I remember. She didn't give me any of those answers. She just giggled and said, do what you want to do. So, after I prayed about it, I said, well, I think the Blessed Mother wants this known. And after I published it, I found out a lot of people in Europe already knew that. You see, we have a language problem, translating things. So, that was, excuse me, that was what put us on the slow boat to China, if you want to call it that. So after I published it, it became something everybody wanted to know who had not read it in the vigil, because I did a whole entire story on this. How do I know the miracle is going to happen in April? Well, that's how I know, and I feel that's pretty good evidence. If I don't have good documentation, good evidence, no matter what I know, it's not going to go public. And I assure you, I don't have any secrets. I know the girls. It doesn't mean that I know anything more than the world knows. I have no secrets. Loli has never told me the year of the warning. I don't believe she ever will. Conchita has never revealed the date of the miracle, even though some people say she tells this or that, or she says it in confession. Please don't believe it. I know a priest who is very, very, very eminent, very popular in the world. I'm not mentioning any names. And he insisted that she tell him the date of the miracle in the confessional. And there is no way that he would do that. I myself and Loli were visiting the bishop here. And we were joking around. And I said to the bishop, we were discussing the warning, when it was going to happen. And I said to the bishop, why don't you ask her when the warning is going to be? What year is it going to be? And he said, you know, I'd never do that out of curiosity. And he was dead serious, and he was right. I'd never do that out of curiosity. And then he said to me, but if she didn't tell you, she isn't going to tell anybody. And I said, if she doesn't tell her husband, she isn't going to tell anybody. Her husband already told her that if the warning happens and she hasn't told him the year, he's going to send her to the moon. So, no, these girls have kept everything secret. It is possible that she did tell Pope Paul VI the date of the miracle. She was going to tell the bishop, not this bishop, this was the bishop who was killed, the date of the miracle, but she left. And when she got outside, she said she forgot to tell him the date of the miracle, and she decided not to go back in and tell him. They were having a private conversation. So as far as I know, nobody knows the date of the miracle. She has never admitted that she gave it to anybody, not her mother, not her brother, no priest, nobody. She may have given it to Pope Paul VI. We know that much. And that's it, because she did speak to him privately. And that's all we know about that. And she is not going to tell. And she's very cunning when people ask her. And she says her answer all the time, well, it's closer today than it was yesterday. To us today. So I'm telling you little stories, not too much. I'm telling you mostly personal things that you're never going to hear at any of my lectures unless somebody asks a question related to it. That's what I'm trying to do here today, to tell you things that are not widely known. Does anybody have any questions they want to ask?
What are the conditions of the rural for the warning to take place?
Jacinta said that when the warning happens, the world will be at its worst. That's what she said. And she doesn't know as far as and she may know the year also, but she doesn't remember. And she never told anybody that she knew it. But Loli has always said that she's known the year of the warning. Yes?
Do the girls remember all of the 2,000 messages, and was there any jealousy between them because one stopped before the others?
She's asking me, do the girls know the 2,000 messages, and is there any jealousy between them because one stopped sooner than some stopped before the others? Well, first of all, there were not 2,000 messages. There were 2,000, at least 2,000 ecstasies, and perhaps much more than that. They stopped counting after 2,000. We know Loli had 40 ecstasies in one day, which was the most that they ever counted for one girl. And when the ecstasies began, they were all together in ecstasy. Then, after a while, it tapered in such a way that after they were all satisfied, these 4 girls, they live in different areas. Okay, you saw Mary Cruz, just Conchita, Jacinta lived down that way and Conchita down that way. They're all in different houses being watched. And yet they would fall into ecstasy at the exact same moment in the same place. They would arrive. They always knew, although they couldn't explain how they knew, where they had to go. And they began running and leaving wherever they were at on the 3rd call. That's when they would take off. And just crashed down on their knees, looking up all together, and the doctors couldn't figure out how did they know, because the girls were kept apart. And another thing is, they never discussed the apparitions among themselves. Never. And, yes.
I read in a book that Mary Lowell said that the Pope was in hiding at the time of her.
Don't believe it.
Okay.
She's saying she read in the book that Mary Lowell said that the Pope was in hiding.
At the time of the warning.
Will be in hiding at the time of the warning. She never said any such thing. The girls are really disgusted with what's coming out in the books, especially now, because a lot of it is all not true. And they've lost a lot of confidence in the press as well, because they never come out with the story in the right way. It's always changed on mistakes, or whether it's deliberate, or they try to sensationalize. They try to, even Father Ramon told me the same thing. Too much is exaggerated. He told me when they were coming down the rocky path from the pines, well, it's true that it looked like the girls have wings on their feet, but it didn't mean they were flying. And that's what one of the books says. They were flying. And he says it's ridiculous. There's a big difference between running fast with your feet hardly touching the ground with flying. So, many things are exaggerated. We don't have to do that with Garabandal, because what took place here is sensational. It's unheard of what happened. And it only proves to me that the Blessed Mother went all out. But she always asked the girls' permission if they were willing to do this. And of course they always said, as you wish, as you wish. They were willing to do anything. I was talking about pendants down there. You know, the girls made tight knotted belts to wear around their waists. And they exposed it deliberately because they wanted the Blessed Mother to see it, to see if she was going to be happy with this. And Father Morales, when he came, she told him too, take it off. And that's not what she's looking for. And Father Morales said to them, don't wear it. But later on, you may need to wear it. So that she's not looking for that. What she's looking for is the sacrifice and the penance that God permits to pass our way every day of our lives. And sometimes it can be a living martyrdom to say to ourselves, why do I have to put up with this? Well, anyway, to get back to the story. These girls would be separated, and then to answer somebody's question here, then there would be 3, then there would be 2. Sometimes if there are the 4 of them, 2 would be looking up and 2 would be this way, but they're all seeing the same thing. They sign themselves in a spontaneous way, as you saw in the film, and without any preparation or knowledge of what the other was going to do. They were totally and completely absorbed. And what was the other part of your question?
Jealous.
Are they jealous of each other? Well, they're human beings, and I know for one time Jacinta was enjoying the vision of the Blessed Mother just like the other girls. One night, again, the father said, it's 10 o'clock, go to bed. And Jacinta began to backtalk her father and cry and make a scene. I don't want to go to bed. The Virgin is going to come. She had already received a call. And I don't want to go to bed. And he finally had to scold her, and she went to bed crying because she did not want to go to bed. The next day, the girls have the vision. The next day, they have it again, and so on. And finally, Jacinta, who was excluded from this, said to Loli, ask the Blessed Mother why I'm not seeing you. Excuse me. And finally, at the end of the month, the Blessed Mother told Jacinta, told Loli, tell Jacinta she'll see me tomorrow. And the next day, when Jacinta saw her, the first words out of her mouth is, where have you been? Why couldn't I see you? And she said, you remember what I told you? That you have to obey your parents before you obey me. And you were disobedient. That's why. So, again, these are lessons for all of us. With Loli, the dream of every kid that grows up here in this village, at least at that time, was to bust out of here and go to the big town, go to the big city. And the only way they could do that is to go to school outside, because at that time they only had primary grades here at the schoolhouse. And Loli was no different. You know, she would love to go to school outside the village, in the city, and the kids, you know, typical teenagers. Lupita, tenga un poco de agua, por favor. Sí, por favor. And so her father decided, because, you know, one day he believed, that's how the parents were. They were like this. When the girls were in ecstasy, everybody believed because they witnessed the transformation. But when they were normal, it was very difficult because it was their own children. It tastes delicious. But you notice, in the United States, you would never give a cup like this to a visitor, right? That shows you the simplicity of the way they live here. Anyway, her father decided, well, I'm going to get to the bottom of this. Let's find out if it's true that this is really the Blessed Mother. So he said to Loli, next time you see the Virgin, I want you to ask her if you should go to school in the city and see what she says. So Loli, nice and happy, when she saw the Blessed Mother, she said, my father wants to know what should I do? Should I go to school in the city or stay here? I bet you can't imagine what the answer was.
Do what your father tells you.
Exactly. Do what your father wants. Whatever he says you have to do, that's what you got to do. If he wants you to go to the city, you go to the city. If he wants you to stay here, you stay here. And so this really mystified her father even more. And he thought to himself, well, perhaps this really is the Virgin, because my daughter would never say that. If this was a phony, she would say, oh, the Blessed Mother said I have to go to the city to go to school. So another little thing that you probably won't hear at the lecture is that when the Blessed Mother came with the baby Jesus in her arms, she didn't come with the brown scapular, although when I give lectures I usually say she came with the brown scapular and the baby Jesus in the other arm, because I have to make the lecture very concise. I can't give every single little tiny detail. But the truth of the matter is, if she came with the scapular, she did not come with the baby Jesus. If she came with the baby Jesus, she did not come with the scapular. And this baby Jesus never seemed to get older. He was always the same. He was tiny, always smiling very much. And you know what the Blessed Mother let them do? She let them hold the baby Jesus in their arms. And they would be so happy, and the people would see that they were holding this. They couldn't see the baby Jesus, but that they were holding, you know, what they said was a baby. And they're smiling very much, and then they pass from one to the other and to the other one and so forth. Well, now the theologians and the priests come along and they say, so you held the baby Jesus? What did he feel like? And they said, he didn't feel like anything at all. There was no weight to him at all. And you know something? That was the correct theological answer. How could these girls at 12 years old have a theological answer that fit our faith when they knew nothing at all about theology? In fact, their knowledge was probably equal. They were probably equal to 8-year-old children. Not that they were dumb or stupid, but they did not have the knowledge that city children have. Theirs was probably equal to 8. And this also mystified everybody. Mary Cruz up at the Pines in the very beginning used to pick out the colored stones, and she'd put them in her pockets and her sleeves. This is before the Blessed Mother began kissing objects. And she would save them for the baby Jesus to play with, these little colored stones, pretty stones. But the baby Jesus never took them. But the Blessed Mother began kissing these stones. And pretty soon the people got the idea to bring holy things. And this Father de la Riba, who was stationed quite a ways from here in some little hick-town parish, began bringing all these crucifixes. And all those crucifixes, most all of them, not all of them, most all the crucifixes you see the girls holding came from him. And he brought tons of them over here, and people were bringing their medals, rosaries, and scapulars, and anything and everything for the Blessed Mother to kiss. She hadn't made any promises yet about it. They just wanted something that touched her lips. Well, anyway.
When Our Lady appeared to see Simon Stock with the
Scapular.
She didn't appear in the brown Carmelite robes, did she?
No.
She appeared.
We
How
see.
did she appear
We
here?
see. Okay. He's asking a very interesting question. You know, we go in any Catholic church, and we'll see Our Lady of Mount Carmel dressed in sort of a cream color and brown robes. And this is the traditional color that we know identifies her as Our Lady of Mount Carmel. The truth of the matter is, when she first appeared to St. Simon Stock, a very great saint of the Carmelite order, in Aylesford, England, she appeared to him because he was a superior at that time, and he was going through terrible anguish, mental anguish. He was being persecuted. They had, the Carmelites originated on Mount Carmel in the Holy Land, in Israel. And they became disbanded. They traced back their order to Elias from the Old Testament. I'm not going to give you a rundown on all this, but from the time of Elias, the Carmelites used to call themselves the little brothers of the Blessed Virgin Mary, and they lived a very secluded, contemplative life here on this mountain in Israel. The Saracens came and they became disbanded. They were being persecuted and murdered, and they disbanded and they came into Europe. That's how they arrived here. And St. Simon Stock became the superior of the Carmelite order in England. But he was under terrific persecution by his, not only people who didn't accept them, but by his own fellow priests. You see, it went on in those days just as well. And he was suffering a lot, and he composed this prayer to Our Lady of Mount Carmel, and he began praying for an answer. Was he on the right track? What should he do? And she wants to know all about this too. Okay, yeah. So sure enough, the Blessed Mother appeared to St. Simon Stock with what we call today the scapular. Actually, she was dressed differently from the way that we see it, but we didn't know this until the apparitions of Garabandal, and and research was done on this. But the scapular really consists of a robe like a tilma. It's all it is. They used it as an apron, and it has one cloth in the front and one in the back, and it is brown with a hole to slip over your head. That's what the brown scapular is supposed to be. Now it's all modified. It's little, but it still has to be brown attached to the cord. But anyway, she handed him the scapular, and she said, "Whosoever dies wearing this will never see the fires of hell." That was a promise that was unheard of, because as far as I know, at that time there was no sacramental in the church that promised that you salvation, help you get salvation, or help you to reach heaven, but one that actually promised it. Well, when she began appearing here, she came dressed in a white robe and a blue cape, and she had a diadem of stars around her head. She did not have a crown on her head. She had a diadem of 12 stars. And people were saying, "That's Our Lady of Mount Carmel? That's not the way she's dressed." But she came with the brown scapular over her wrist that looked like a priest's maniple. You know, the one they used to wear years ago, with a big cross on one side and a mountain on the other part of the scapular. And so they decided to research this. How come she was dressed like this? And the girls insisted that's the way she was dressed. And they went back to St. Simon Stock, the annals of St. Simon Stock. They researched it, and they found that in his description, that's exactly how she appeared to him. White dress and a blue cape, a diadem of 12 stars. The only difference was she did not give him the scapular that I just described. It was like the apron. And so, you know, everybody began to think, this is not wonderful. This is something the girls could never have known. There's no way they would have ever known such a thing. And so that's the way she came dressed. Now, about her crown. She had this diadem of 12 stars. Another thing the people saw was that the Blessed Mother took her crown and let the girls play with it. And they were putting it on their head. But the stars were so hot that it was like, when they touched it, it was like a fire. And you know, it didn't really burn them, but it's like you're going near a hot stove, you don't want to put your fingers on it. But they had fun holding the baby Jesus, trying the crown, and the people could see that they were passing this crown, everybody there, the four of them taking turns. So it was a very happy time, but it wasn't all fun and games. The Blessed Mother even played hide and go seek with them. And why? Because she's a mother. They were children. What does a mother do with her children? Doesn't she play with them? Then the next thing you know, when it's time to say goodbye, and they're saying, no, 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 don't go, it's too, you haven't been here long enough, stay another little while. And she said, no, I have to go. And what would happen? It was the Blessed Mother that started it. She would take the little one and kiss them. Like a mother kisses her children. And pretty soon they began, in order to reach her, they began picking each other up like they were a piece of paper. But yet 4 strong men couldn't move them once they fell into ecstasy. There was no way they could move them. As a matter of fact, one night Conchita was called by the Blessed Mother, and there was a ton of snow outside. And she went out with nothing, no coat or anything. And there she went into the snow and in ecstasy, in total ecstasy. And her brother went out there, and he thought, my sister is going to get sick. You know, what is she doing here in the snow? And so he tried to pick her up. And you know, an invisible force threw him backwards. He could never explain it. The Blessed Mother did tell the girls that once they fell into ecstasy, she did not want anybody to touch them or anything like that. But the doctors did. They tried everything to move the girls, and they couldn't. In the video that Michael produced, you hear the testimony of Pepe Diaz. If we can, we'll meet him. He was a witness to the miracle of the host. Everyone that lives in this village witnessed these girls hundreds of times. And he said he saw the doctors trying to lift Conchita, and they only got her as far as her toes, and that was it. They couldn't go any further in lifting her. It was impossible. So we have the phenomena of weightlessness. Loli would levitate off the ground. You heard me say that the other night. You'll see it in the video as well. And so these other things, all these things that were happening, they were in the church. This Dr. Morales, the first commission that came up, the negative commission, I think they only came up twice. And they really didn't examine the girls at all. They just brushed it off like, this is nothing but our kid's gay. And unfortunately, that got published. There's nothing supernatural about it. But the bishop himself told me, one of the times that he had come up, he was not a bishop then, he was a priest sent up by the bishop at that time to report back to him what was taking place here. And they were kneeling at the altar rail. And it was the bishop, it was some other people from this commission. There had to be at least 3 or 4 people. And this Dr. Morales, who absolutely downplayed the whole thing. He practically, said, don't believe in this, it's nothing but garbage. Anyway, they were all kneeling at the altar rail. Who comes in but the 4 girls in ecstasy? Their arms are locked like this, and they're walking in like that, And what do? They head right for them. Here are their legs over here, okay? And they're kneeling at the altar rail. And the girls are coming from this direction. And their heads up, they're not looking where they're going. They're arm in arm, and what do? Instead of stepping on their feet or bumping into them, they missed every one of them. They went like that and stepped without looking. And this doctor got up and said, that's it, I've seen enough, I've had enough, this is nothing but a game. He failed to realize How in the world could these girls do such a thing with about 3 or 4 of them kneeling there and not even touch their legs? How could they do such a thing? But to him, it was, you know, he just thought it was just a game. Well, this bishop turned around and resigned from that commission because the investigation was not going according to church law. And so he resigned from it completely. Little did we know that years later he was going to end up being bishop in this diocese, which he was in the early 70s. And he was the 5th bishop since the beginning of the apparitions. So he's the only one out of all of them that ever saw the girls in ecstasy. He knows what he saw. I'm not saying that he believes or he disbelieves because he never told me. It's getting late.
It's 11:30.
Oh my God, I tell you, thank you. Well, we'll have to continue on. But I'm trying to tell you things that you're not going to hear at other times, okay? Does anyone have any questions they want to ask me?
Maria, I know there's a diary out, like, and I guess it's not in English. Is there anything you can tell us in terms of
The diary was the first thing that was printed in English that we had. We published that in 1965.
Where is that?
We had it all translated, and actually I'd already received it translated. I did not translate her diary. I did not have somebody do it. It was done. So if it's not translated correctly, I won't take that responsibility. But we had it in sheets of paper, and we copied it and mimeographed it, and this is all we had, that and Father Lafanier's letters, all stapled together. And the diary has been written in Spanish, French, English, and maybe other languages, but that's what I know of. Now, the way we printed the diary was in its pure form, but the diaries that have been come out in books have all the writers or the publishers' own comments, and they implement their own ideas in this, you know. So maybe some things have changed, but we did publish the original.
Can we get a copy of yours?
You might be able to get it from, I'm not sure, but there is a, no, wait a minute, they have it in Spanish. The family that Conchita lived with published it, the Dominguez's. He's a doctor and his wife, but I think they did it in Spanish. You may be able to get it from the New York Center. I'm not sure.
I heard that they stopped the publishing.
They stopped publishing? Well, it's possible. It's possible.
Is that Conchita's time?
I can't hear you.
There's a little green book, covered book, which the Dutch brothers have up there.
It is a
which
dream book?
Father Pellegrini.
Green. Oh, Pellegrini.
A green book?
Color green. And it's Father Pellegrini.
A Lady Comes to Garabandal.
Yeah, I think that also...
That's out of print also, and he was an Assumptionist priest. Yeah, and that it was forbidden to copy that book after he died. And there are several errors in that book as well.
In the diaries?
No, not in Our Lady Goes to Garabandal or Comes to Garabandal. It's a good book, but there are several errors in it. I wouldn't call it really serious errors, but there are errors in it.
Whose diary is this, Maria?
No, that's not the diary
No,
he's talking
no,
about.
the one you're talking about, the
The
original.
diary, Conchita's diary.
Oh, Conchita.
Jacinta has kept a diary that she does not want published until after her death. And Loli kept several diaries, but when the girls became confused and couldn't remember clearly, she tore them up, and the others she hid in the attic, in this attic. And we went up there looking for it because it changed hands.
Loli's mother.
Julia. Who's that? Let me see. Lupita. I don't know what it is. It's written in Spanish. She can't see. Her eyesight is very poor now.
That's okay, we can see her.
To call her daughter to give her the medicine. She can't see, but so she's failing now. So please pray for her. You know, we noticed that now, and she is. Thank God we got some good footage of her and some of her stories in the past. That's in the video. She's also in the video. So anyway, the point is, Conchita's diary was printed, and I can't even say that I can send it to you in English because that was back in 1965 that we printed it, and we stopped printing it when the first book came out, which is the book that we carry.
Oh, it's in that book? The one with the picture on it? It's in that brown and white book?
Yeah, but that's not the diary.
Oh.
That's not the diary, but that is the best book out. It's the most authentic. It was the first one. The first one is always the best, and it's more true. And there are some mistakes in there too, but not serious. Any last questions? And we'll continue on at another time.
You were talking about Lily's diary?
Oh yeah, Lily's diary. She hid a couple of diaries in there, and she really was not happy that we wanted to get in there and search for it. But one year, we were here together with the family, and she had to go to the city with Sari to do some shopping. And so we got in here. This is before Lupita moved in. And we went searching up in the attic, and because Loli always said, by now the rats have eaten them. And because they had already moved into the other house, there were other people that had lived here, had bought the house, but they didn't live here. And we didn't find anything. So, but we don't know where she hid it either. So maybe someday, like St. Louis Marie de Montfort, you know, his things were hidden, and then at the right moment they emerged. Maybe that will happen here, I don't know. But she kept a diary. But fortunately, there are a lot of tapes, audio tapes, that were done by the Spanish people at the time of the apparition. So there are a lot of things on tape, but we don't have access to it. Some people going at the same time. One person talking about God and another one that's fed up with it, hearing about it. So that's the one thing we all have in common. That's what we're doing here. We all love Jesus through Mary, and we want to put that implemented in our lives. Now, we're going to continue with our walk, and we're going to try to cover as much information as possible. And so let's begin now with asking for the special graces that we all have inside of us in our hearts, especially for the graces and petitions of all those people who've ever come to Garabandal and all those who really wanted to come and just couldn't make it this year. And the many, many, many people that have asked us to remember them here where our Blessed Mother lived for 4 years. So let's begin now with an Our Father, Hail Mary, Glory be, and the invocation of Saint Michael. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen. Saint Michael the Archangel, pray for us.